Welcome to Talmudic Treasures. Today we are learning Gittin page 16, which discusses the requirement in order for a person who is impure to become tahor or pure. They need to immerse themselves in a body of water called a mikvah. A mikvah is made of rainwater, and there are very specific, intricate laws exactly how to make sure that the mikvah is rainwater only, and not that it starts off with drawn water, which would invalidate it. Now, there's also a minimum requirement of 40 saw. Now, saw is a measure in biblical times and Talmudic times, and that was what was considered enough for a person to be able to enter into this body of water, which is explained elsewhere as 1 cubit wide, 1 cubit in length, and 3 cubits in height. A cubit, let's call it 2 feet, so if a person is less than 6 feet, so you can be completely immersed in there. That is the minimum amount, but it has to be at least 40 saw. Now, interestingly enough, what happens if you have one person that enters into this mikvah, and then, again, the mikvah is exactly the bare minimum, and then they leave. They completely walk out of this mikvah, and then a second person comes in. So we say that, of course, the first person is pure, but the second person is not. The question is why? After all, this person did immerse themselves in a mikvah. But we can understand, logically, that when this person, the first one, exits, they're not exiting dry. They have some water on them, which means that some amount of the mikvah, as small as it may be, is actually leaving together with this first person. And therefore, because of that, now we do not have the requisite 40 saw in this mikvah, and therefore the second person will not be pure. However, interestingly enough, it's brought down here that what happens if the first person didn't entirely leave? Let's say he even has just his foot still in the water, and then the second person immerses themselves. Now, even though the truth is there's not 40 saw of water in that mikvah, but because there is this connection of the first person and his foot and all the water that's on him, we actually will say that the second person is pure. That's a fascinating concept, which is not necessarily unique by mikvah, but it is something which is borrowed with regard to other things as well. So we see from here an interesting thing, that once a person is completely removed from a situation, they no longer have any connection to it whatsoever. And therefore, what happens afterwards, happens afterwards. But if you have any connection to something, even if it seems very insignificant, the reality is you can still be an influence to that thing. So even though it's true that you may not very well be totally immersed, if you will, in a particular topic or subject matter, but if you have even, so to speak, a toe in the subject matter, but you have some connection, as small as it may be, so that small influence could very well be enough to make all the difference. And it's an important thing for us to realize, because you can say, well, I'm not involved anymore, so because of that, I don't really have any connection to this particular school, this organization, this business. But the reality is, even if you have some level of involvement, you don't realize how much of an impact you in fact really can have. And that's also when it comes to all people and all relationships. Even though it seems like you've stepped away entirely, but as long as you have some connection to that relationship, so that relationship is not severed. As long as you don't remove that last toe from your relationship, you still have some redeeming connection to that very thing. And therefore, a person should not be so quick to give up hope and think just because they are not so involved in a particular thing that they have no ability to be able to make a connection, no ability to make any type of influence or to inspire others. The reality is, even with one toe, that can make the difference.